Hey everyone, today I wanted to make a YouTube video of a 30-day review of the 2019 Quest XS Carbon Velomobile. So I want to start off with a couple cons. So it gets hot and humid inside when climbing due to the lack of speed and airflow in there. And to try to combat that, I added a truck stop fan. Look down there, you can probably hear it running. Has a little control switch over here. Faster, slower. And to run that, I use a lithium phosphate battery by Tracker. It's an 18 amp hour, so it should give you plenty of run time. And that runs the lights and the fan. All right, another con. I had to do a lot of adjustments, such as lowering the seat, because for the seat was all the way up here and it would contact here when I would put it back down, so it made it pretty hard to access the gear. I've had to tighten up the brakes and found that one is definitely warped. I've had to adjust the front derailleur height and the cable tension on the front derailleur mount. The front derailleur mount actually came loose, so I had to actually take the front derailleur off, and if you can see it down in there, it's very difficult to get to. You have to roll this thing on its side to get to it. So needless to say, it's very difficult to adjust. And it took me a couple hours. The headlights are very dim. So let me go ahead and turn those on for you. So how you turn on the headlights is you go down here. There's a switch for low beam and high beam. I'm just going to put it on high beam because you probably won't even see anything during the day. Can't really see anything during the day, but let me tell you, at night I've almost hit several deer with this Velomobile because I couldn't see them. Because if they're looking away, you can't see them. If they're looking towards you, their eyes will glow, as everybody knows. But I've also had a skunk run into me right over here. Didn't do any damage, but you know, just walked right into me while I was going down the road in the middle of the night. Another complaint I have is the seat has no drainage. Currently I have like a little bag of ice water here to kind of keep it cool. But if you lift this up, there's no hole for any sweat to drain out. So when you fill this with sweat, you kind of just sitting in it. Something I would probably end up doing, I'll probably end up drilling a hole in this seat to let the sweat drain out onto the floor. The only problem with that is that all the sweat that you drip down there is going to go into the chain. It's going to go onto the chain, and so the chain's underneath the seat, and it's has a chain cover right here, and it goes underneath this chain cover. And the only way for it to drain out is to come out through the derailleur drain down here. So it's really the only way for it to come out. The other complaint I have is going into this, honestly, I didn't know this is going to be an issue going into this, but Strava, using Strava with a Velomobile, Strava has some weird, stupid thing against Velomobiles that they don't want people using a Velomobile. So they want you to mark your activity as under Velomobile, and what that does is it doesn't allow you to compete with any cyclists, and allows you to only compete against other Velomobile riders. Problem with that is there's no other Velomobile riders in your area, most likely. Like, especially around here. There ain't nothing around. There ain't no one else with a Velomobile around my area. So, needless to say, I'd be competing against myself, and I'd be the king of the mountain on every single segment. And for those of you who don't know what Strava is a popular activity tracking app that is common among cyclists and runners. And you use it to compete against each other online. They have monthly competitions for distance. You can compete against each other on segments. Like, for example, you can make segments. For example, this road right here, there's like a little road that runs down along there, up there. I made that into a Strava segment. And what it does when you make a segment is everyone who has gone through that area, it will get their times, and whoever has the fastest time gets the king of the mountain, or if it's a female, it's the queen of the mountain. So that's kind of how that works. And that's quite an achievement, being especially if you're in an area popular for cycling, because usually there will be the KOM or QOM is held by a racer, or people who do group rides in large packs of cycles. So Strava's argument was the Velomobile does too much of an aerodynamic advantage to be used against a normal bicycle. My argument to that is that, well, if that's your spirit of fairness, because they were saying that it's not fair, I'm like, then you guys should not allow people to ride with time trial bikes, because essentially they give you the same aerodynamic efficiency. Or you should not allow people to ride in groups with time trial bikes, or in groups in general, because they can draft and get the same aerodynamic advantage as I do in this Velomobile. Now, Velomobiles in the US anyway, you can use these in time trial competitions if you have a disability. So Americans have something called the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. And what that does is it allows you to use forms of adaptive cycles in areas you usually would not be allowed to use them. So because I'm an 80% disabled veteran, I kind of argued that point with Strava, and they kind of just left it at that after flagging my activities. And they actually manually changed my activities to Velomobile, and then they told me how to change it back after we had our little back and forth through email and on their comment section. They didn't really want to say anything publicly, so just want to point that out, that Strava was very, very mean about it. They didn't want to let it happen. And the thing is, if they violate an ADA, if they violate the ADA, they can be fined $175,000. So that's no small feat for any business. So that's why usually when you mention anything ADA, they will just be like, okay, whatever, do what you want. Now, in competitions with this thing, if I were to enter this into a regular bike race, most bike races have policies that require you to notify them in advance that you need to use one of these. And one of the rules of the ADA means that you have to be able to compete against regular upright bicycles. Traditionally, they allow recumbents. Most commonly, they allow recumbents for this. But the thing is, a recumbent trike doesn't... If you're using a recumbent trike in a time trial competition, it doesn't give you that much aerodynamic advantage, especially not over a regular two-wheeled time trial bike. Even the two-wheel recumbents aren't that aerodynamic. So that's where the Velomobile will come in at, would be in time trial competitions. If I wanted to take this thing into amusement parks or stores and whatnot, I would be technically allowed to, because under the ADA, I'm allowed to choose whether adaptive vehicle I want to transport myself. And as long as you're using it for purposes of a disability, you're allowed to do it. But I think that's about enough for Strava and ADA talk here. Another thing I want to mention is the storage area is very, very awkward and hard to use. So I recently did a bike packing trip, and pretty much this whole back end here is nothing but storage. If I lift the seat up, you can see it pretty well. So currently I have just a tool bag here, but behind this is a big old DeWalt bag. But behind that, it goes all the way to the tail. On this side, I just have a mat. I use this mat for roadside repairs because you have to roll it on its side to change tires and whatnot. So I just keep that. It can go smaller, but it's the way I keep it. But you notice you can't really use anything on this side because this swing arm here moves up and down. So you pretty much have to do everything behind this shock here. And the problem with that is, once you put things back there, it's very hard to reach them. It's almost impossible to reach them without pulling a muscle or something, especially when your muscles are tired after riding all day. Which in these things, you can ride all day because they're comfortable. And if they're not comfortable, then you just don't have your bike set up right. And you just need to make some adjustments. For the most part, I know how to set up bikes, so I can do it pretty good. I actually recently did a group ride with a group of 16 plus cyclists, road cyclists. What I did is I rode up to the meeting spot the night before, and I camped out there overnight. And in the morning I just packed all my gear up and went to meet up with them, and you can't see that I have any gear in there. So they thought I had drove there somehow, and they're asking where my vehicle was. I'm like, well, I rode here on this. They're like, so you literally camped out here overnight? I'm like, yeah. So anyway, we rode together, and a couple things I want to say about riding in a group later on, but let's get to the next one. Another issue one thing I don't like is the variety of tools you're gonna need to carry on you to be able to make roadside repairs. So everything on here, you need like full-size tools. So for example, if your seat comes loose, it's held on with 2 nuts. So you need a wrench and a socket or something to put on the end to tighten them together and lock them together. So that's why in my repair kit, I have a wrench and a socket wrench. Everything else takes Allen keys, so I carry a full-size Allen key set. I carry an adjustable wrench, and I carry a not adjustable wrench, but channel lock pliers. That's what I carry. And this thing has 2 different size tires. It has 20-inch in the front and 26-inch in the rear. The problem with that is 26-inch is not available pretty much anywhere, and these all take pressed valve, so that's even harder to find. So you can't just go to Walmart and pick up a 26-inch tube. No, I had to special order these tubes online, so I got 2 of those with me, and they're in that bag that I just showed you guys. In the front there's 20-inch wheels, so those also take a pressed valve, and because of how skinny they are, they're not really stocked anywhere. So I have those from my trike, so that was really no big deal. But again, they don't carry those regularly at normal stores or bike shops. So most bike shops carry the common sizes, 29, 650B, which is 27.5. You could possibly make a 27.5 work temporarily, but it would probably be bumpy. And they sell the 700C for road bikes. But the problem with the 27.5 is it'll be a little wide, but let's just leave it at that. So another thing I want to mention about this is the Velomobile is very easy to damage. So for example, if you were just to push down with your finger, you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it flexes pretty easily. And with it being able to flex that easily, what could happen is there's like a plaster over the carbon fiber, and that will crack, and it'll leave you with things that look like this, which that's actually from shipping. I'm pretty sure someone put their hand on the Velomobile to lean on it while they strapped it down. So thus that's how that crack got on there, and currently waiting for their insurance companies to reimburse me for the damages they caused. So another thing I gotta emphasize this, that these brakes suck so much. I don't know why they went with drum brakes, probably because there's no way to access it from the inside to undo the calipers. But this bike has drum brakes on it, and drum brakes, they heat up and they don't get rid of heat very easily. And putting them in an enclosed environment like this, like the wheel has almost no ventilation, plus there's a disc cover over it, so for aerodynamics obviously, but it makes it almost impossible for those brakes to cool down. So I don't really like that it has drum brakes, but I can see why they did drum brakes, probably because you can't get it off. But either way, in order to get this wheel off, you have to remove the whole entire suspension to pull the whole wheel off, because it doesn't just undo one bolt and come off like regular bikes do. This is a lot more complicated, but luckily you never have to take any of these wheels off unless something's wrong with the hubs or spokes, because all these are single-sided axles, even the rear is, so you can just change the tires without taking the wheels off. Now let's start out with the pros. So this thing definitely gives you a speed advantage on the downhills compared to a regular upright bike. Now, this is especially noticeable when you're riding around other riders. I can reach speeds probably 45 miles an hour easily, and I've gone up to about 52, 53, something like that. But that's one advantage I gotta say it definitely has. Going up hills, it's definitely a disadvantage against regular bikes. So on the group ride, when I was just gonna ride behind them the whole time, because I figured, you know, I would be slow. I'd be too fast if I got in front of them. But what ended up happening is we did a hilly route, so every time we hit a hill, I'd be probably like a quarter mile behind. But as soon as I got over the top of the hill, I'd catch right up to them, and so I ended up having to ride my brakes going down hills, and they would lose me on the uphill. So what I ended up doing is I ended up taking the front, and I ended up just getting ahead of them pretty far to get up the hills so by the time at the top of the hill, they'd be caught up to me. I averaged about 17.5 miles per hour average on that ride, and that's not really putting out too much effort. I can do 18 miles per hour average on this thing, but I'm assuming if I lived in a flatter area, it'd be a lot better. So it gives you protection from the elements, from rain, snow, whatever, wind. And that's kind of an advantage because you don't want to be getting soaked when you're on a bike ride, but inside here you get a lot of condensation. So especially when you're riding in cooler weather, the inside of it will just get wet because all your body heat against the cold body just pulls down there, so you end up soaked anyway. But at least you're warm, protected from the wind and stuff like that. Now, this thing has a rain cover that covers the top area, goes around here all the way up here, and covers here up to your face. And that works good to keep pretty much everything but your face dry, because the wind and everything will push it up over. So that's another thing I want to point out, is that it comes with that rain cover. And actually it has a complete seal on the rain cover for when you're parked. So while you have that thing on, there's the second piece, which I keep under the seat, this part here. And what this does, it'll just kind of go right here, and this part will snap on to the rain cover, and it'll complete the seal. So that way, if you're parked overnight for like a bike packing trip or whatnot, and it rains, you don't have to worry about your whole inside getting wet, so you can just leave your gear inside and not worry about it. To help with the condensation is also why I put the fan in, because I noticed it helps keep the sweat off my legs and whatnot. So I'm assuming that's going to come in handy once I get the racing hood. I just got an update today from Theo at Velomobile.nl. He's telling me the racing hood will probably be here near the end of August, beginning of September. Another positive thing I want to point out: people look at this thing and they treat it like a car. So when you're approaching from the rear, it's going to look like this. So people treat this thing like it's a car, so they'll just stay behind you. Most people are like, what the heck is that? Is that a car? Is that a motorcycle? People think it's a car or a motorcycle. And often I get compliments, hey, nice car, like, thanks, and quick passing. But you know, people will stay behind you, and then they'll literally come all the way over and give you the proper distance. Most people don't realize this, but in most states you're required to give at least 3 feet between you and the bicyclist. Now what that means is, if I'm in the lane, so if I'm in a lane like that, if I'm even in like the 1/4 part here, if I'm anywhere in this lane, you will not be able to legally pass me with the 3-foot law, because this is only about, what, 8 foot wide. So given that this bicycle is about 3 feet wide at least, is what the measurements are between the wheels. So add probably another foot, so that's about 4 foot wide ride bicycle. So that's half the lane. If you pass me within that line, you're breaking the law. Now this is not usually enforced because the fine is like $25 here Here in my state, it's actually 4 feet for safety, and that's the minimum that you are to pass a cyclist. So just because it's a 3 foot for safety doesn't mean pass me within 3 feet, because 3 foot is the minimum distance you should be passing me. But nevertheless, it's not even a moving violation. So drivers that break that law will continue to break that law, and police will continue not to enforce it, because it's not even worth their time to pull them over unless they see the vehicle try to run the cyclist off the road. Currently, I have not been tried. No one's tried to run me off the road in this thing yet. Now, I know some other Velomobile rider got hit by a drunk driver. I think it was yesterday, it was yesterday morning, and they were killed by a drunk driver. And there's another Velomobile rider that put it on the Velomobile page, and he was posting how sad he was because he had ridden with the guy maybe a day or two prior. And it's like, you really miss people when shit like that happens. And the problem is the DUI driver just gets away with it, because they just take off when they hit you because they don't want to deal with it. So, but another positive note is inside you got a lot of storage, even though it's awkward storage. But if you have soft stuff like clothing and just bag stuff, small stuff, you can fit it in there pretty nicely. It's when you get the big bulky square stuff that it's hard to fit it in there, like boxes and stuff like that. You can't really fit stuff like that in there unless it's like up here right behind the seat. As you can tell, I have a speaker and everything right there for that reason. Another positive note I want to make is people give you a lot of praise for this thing. They're like, cool, they want to take pictures with you like you're a celebrity or something, because they've never seen anything like this. You get people with years and years of experience, and they've never seen a Velomobile in their life. Honestly, I've never seen a Velomobile in my life other than the Elf car, and that was like one time up near Cabela's. But regardless, this is the first actual aerodynamic Velomobile I've seen in my life, and this is the one I own. So I really like this thing so far. I think in the winter time it will be better, because it'll keep me warmer than I was last year. Last year I had a recumbent trike and relied pretty heavily on layers and heated gloves, but I'm unsure on how it's going to go this year in the winter time, being that it's going to be a lot of condensation in there. But I will have a racing hood, so it will cover this whole top part, making that rain cover not even useful anymore. Unless I'm out on a hot day like this, then I probably won't bring the racing hood unless it has good ventilation. But another thing about the race hood is it has a visor on it you can pop open, so you still get ventilation. But I'm hoping that little fan in there will help a lot. But what else can I say? So the turn signals during the daytime, they're not very noticeable, so I'll turn them on. So these are the turn signals during the day. As you can see, you can't really tell, can't really see them too much unless you're really looking for it. I mean, they are bright, especially at night. But yeah, they're not that great during the day. People often don't see them. Alright, sorry about that. The GoPro had overheated and turned off, but as you can see, the turn signals weren't that bright. And another thing I want to say is you can ride this thing for long distances, and it's really nice for that. Except during the hot sun, you get a little face burn. You get a lot of sunburn on your face. So there's not much you can really do about it, but I'm hoping that using either the racing hood or maybe getting a sun visor for like a recumbent would help with that. Now in here, for entertainment purposes, I have a speaker right there. That's a JBL Charge 5, and I picked that up for about 300 bucks, and that thing works all day. I don't have to worry about it. But even if it does die, I can just charge it off the Velomobile, because I got little 12 volts or little USB sockets over here. Right here, and all I'll do is turn that on. And I plug the USB-C in there that I have the cord right here. And I run it down to the speaker, and I can just charge the speaker or my phone. I can also charge my GPS if I wanted to. But yeah, I think I put about 400 miles on this Velomobile so far. But that's gonna be my 30-day review of the Quest 2019 Quest XS Carbon. Thanks for watching.